Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here in Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs, and want to think and believe that the government wouldn't do anything that would harm us, and that it wouldn't allow businesses to operate in a fashion that also would be harmful. Until we start to look at pesticides and the manufacturers and the use of those same pesticides. The same companies that created genetically modified foods. They're all kind of wrapped together. And they produce chemicals in plants and so forth that could possibly be harmful to us. They could turn our body's defenses against us, and also at the same time cause scorched earth from overspraying and chemicals leaching into the ground that kill the wild plants and natural settings. So we're going to hear a little bit about that sort of thing, and a ban on certain types of pesticides and chemicals that are in wide use across not only Canada but in North America. That the pesticide in question actually is probably the most used pesticide in North America, and MP and a filmmaker are looking to have it banned from use in Canada. So why don't we listen to that, and we're also going to listen to another MP talking about holding CSIS and other law enforcement agencies accountable for misinformation on people and mistakes that have been made that have gotten people tortured and have caused unrightful convictions and other things because of race, religion, and beliefs. So why don't we listen to both of those things as they come across from different MPs about what is happening in our country.
Are we good? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. With me is Stephen Brown, CEO of the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Stephen will make some remarks following mine. I'm also joined by Tim McSorley of the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group, and we will all be available, and also by Karen from National Council of Canadian Muslims, and we all will be available to respond to questions. This morning, I tabled in the House of Commons my private member's bill C-331, an act to amend the Canadian Intelligence Service Act, Duty of Candor. This follows a process of public consultations launched last fall about Canada's national security agencies and how we can build trust in them by increasing transparency and accountability around the duty of candor that CSIS officials owe to the courts. I want to thank everyone who reached out by phone, email, and Zoom, and who attended a town hall to share their experiences. Through these conversations, including town halls in Scarborough, Ottawa, and London in Ontario, and Surrey in BC, I heard a lot of different stories, especially from the racialized Canadians. They spoke of being questioned on their university campuses or outside their places of worship, of lengthy questioning at border crossings, of unexplained surveillance, and of feeling targeted by no other discernible reason than their faith or their ethnicity. They spoke of not being able to trust the motivations of the agents and officers who are sworn to protect them, and all Canadians. I've experienced some of these feelings myself. I want Canadians of all backgrounds to be able to have faith in CSIS, that the organization is looking out for them, holds itself to a high standard of conduct, is subject to strong oversight, and faces consequences when it falls short of its obligations and duty. That trust will be difficult to build, and it will take time, and it must start with transparency. That's what we are seeking to accomplish with this bill. It's not possible to address all the issues that were raised in my consultations with one piece of legislation. But we can make a start, and we can start with more transparency around the duty of candor that CSIS Acts owe to the courts. This bill seeks to amend the CSIS Act in 3 different ways. Number 1, including in the annual classified report by the CSIS Director to the Minister of Public Safety and National Security and Intelligence Review Agency information of the number of breaches of the duty of candor, a brief description of each, and any remedial action taken. Number 2, requiring the same information in an unclassified form be tabled annually in the House by the Minister. And number 3, amending the oath of office sworn by CSIS officials to include the duty of candor owed to the courts. It is my hope that by requiring transparency around breaches of the duty as well as including it in the oath, it will make clear to both management and the agents that this duty is important. I hope that by requiring public reporting on the remedial action taken in response to breaches, management will take this seriously and take strong action that sends a clear message to both the public and the CSIS agent that there will be real consequences for the lack of candor or misleading the court. And I hope that the public, by seeing the actions taken, will see the agency is committed to doing better and upholding their rights. Now that bill is tabled, I will try to work with my colleagues to get it to the second reading debate. I hope there will be widespread support for advancing this legislation and helping to build public trust in our national security agencies. With that, I will turn it over to Stefan from the NCCM, and then we would be go down. Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much, MP Zahid, for your remarks. Bonjour tout le monde. Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Brown, and I am the CEO of the National Council of Canadian Muslims. Now, today marks a turning point in Canadians' collective effort to protect our democracy and the civil liberties that it embodies. For too long, our national security agencies have been allowed to operate with minimal accountability. And this has led to officials and agents in the national security establishment essentially lying in court and to judges to achieve narrow and often questionable operations. These bad decisions have led to the violations of the rights of Canadians. It is an unacceptable pattern that needs to be corrected with sharp action. And that is why we worked with Member of Parliament Salma Zahid in partnering to help in the development of her private bill, C-411, which would increase transparency and accountability in our national security space. We have all been aware of years that our national security agencies haven't been transparent with courts or our lawmakers. So when we came to MP Zahid after yet another ruling about CSIS violating its duty of candor, she acted fast to work and to consult with communities across Canada to find a solution. This bill represents that critical work. This is a critical step forward for Canadian democracy and for the protection of Canadian civil liberties. It is a bill that holds security officials accountable while giving the public more access to our agency's track record and operations. National security officials are not above the law. It is time for action, and this bill is the right place to start. Thank you very much. I will now hand it over to our Senior Legal Officer, Karine Devaux.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My colleagues and I at the National Council of Canadian Muslims have long been working with members of our community who have an increasing mistrust of the authorities in this country. Chief among these authorities are members of the national security establishment that has targeted Muslim community in counterterrorism operation since 9/11. The duty of candor, as we all know, is essential for the maintenance of the rule of law. Yet, the federal court has loudly noted on more than one occasion that CSIS has withheld information from the court, from judges to get warrants. And to what end? Well, it's to achieve their short-term operational goals. And unfortunately, this is at the expense of often very vulnerable Canadians. These breaches of duty of candor by security agents and officials are disastrous for Canadian democracy. They degrade trust among the public, they tear at our social fabric, and very often lead to terrible results. We all remember the Mahararar incident, in which this Canadian citizen was wrongly accused of terrorism, was sent to Syria, was tortured, and this was based partly on false information provided by the RCMP. And we all know the kind of suffering he endured over there. It is time for to stop this lack of accountability. Member of Parliament Salma Zahid has taken the lead to turn words into concrete action. Her bill deserves immediate attention in Parliament by all the elected officials who want to preserve the civil liberties of Canadians. It is a major step forward in a much-needed process for change. We welcome it, and we look forward to working with all those who want to see more transparency and accountability in our national security apparatus. Thank you. I will now leave it to Tim McSorley.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim McSorley. I'm the National Coordinator of the International Civil Liberties Monitoring Group. First, I would like to thank MP Zahid and our colleagues at the National Council of Canadian Muslims for being here today and for inviting us to join them at the introduction of this very important piece of legislation. And I would like to thank MP Zahid and her team and staff for the concerted and dedicated work that they've done to address these issues of accountability and transparency with Canada's national security agencies. As my colleagues have said, and as our coalition has documented over the past 20 years, for far too long, national security agencies in Canada, including CSIS and the RCMP, have been able to act with impunity, particularly through multiple findings of misleading the courts. CSIS in particular, through multiple reviews and multiple court findings, has been essentially pulled up on the rug for misleading the courts, for withholding information, and for breaching their duty of candor. And it's integral that something be done to ensure that they can't continue to do this. There was a review by the National Security and Intelligence Review Agency that put forward very important policy changes that would have to happen both at the Department of Justice and among CSIS. However, what we've seen time and time again after other court findings, after other review findings, is that CSIS has failed to report on how they've actually acted to implement those policies. And what have we found after the fact is that they actually haven't implemented those policies, that they find it too difficult, that it falls to the wayside. By bringing in this important bill on transparency, what we'll be able to do is fill a gap in order to ensure that when CSIS does not meet the expectations that the courts have put forward and that the review agencies have put forward, that will have to be shared publicly, that there will be able to be more of a discussion. As my colleague said, what we have seen over the years is that national security agencies, because of this secrecy and lack of transparency, have been able to engage in rights violations, whether it's towards Canada's Muslim population, towards individuals abroad, or towards other communities that have been targeted by national security laws. It's time that this needs to be stopped, and we're looking forward to working with MP Zahid and with the National Council of Canadian Muslims and others to make sure that this private member's bill makes it through Parliament and makes some significant change. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Stephen, Karen. We are here if there are any questions.
Sure, if I can ask this to anyone.
Samash? Tony Prep. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here quite early this morning. I appreciate it as well. I first, of course, would like to acknowledge that I am addressing you today from the unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people. At the core beliefs of the Anishinaabe is the notion of respect. Each element is part of the cycle of life. Each has its purpose and deserves as much respect. Our relationships are what matter the most, and we should cherish them. I am also conscious that we have people joining us from across Turtle Island who are located on both treaty and unceded lands of Canada's Indigenous peoples. In the riding I represent of Fredericton, or Ekpahug, we are unceded Willistok-Galliog territory, where the beautiful and bountiful river flows through our communities and reminds us of our collective responsibility to each other and the land. This context is important for the conversation we are having today and is what motivates me to do the work that I do on this issue. Canadians have the right to breathe clean air, drink safe water, and harvest healthy foods from the land. I am pleased to be able to support the hard work of so many people across the country, people who are fighting in their own ways for a healthier and sustainable tomorrow. This is why I'm here today, why I tabled my private member's bill, C-287, an act to amend the Pest Control Products Act, glyphosate, and why I'm looking forward to presenting later this morning petition E-4127, which gathered more than 18,000 signatures. There is a growing global consensus that glyphosate is a threat to biodiversity and human health. Over the last 3 years, I had meetings with dozens of stakeholders who graciously shared their knowledge and work with me. My goal has always been to remain critical of the information I was given and to pursue research that is independently led and based on facts. I had multiple conversations with my colleagues trying to find common ground and solutions for the benefit of Canadians' health, from our forests to our fields. I believe that rather than allowing toxic chemicals to be sprayed in Canada until they are proven harmful, we should be exercising greater precautions and banning products until they can be deemed safe. By implementing a ban, we will be one step closer to ensuring safer communities for generations to come. I want to thank the leadership of the tens of thousands of New Brunswickers, but especially Dr. Carolyn Luber-Darcy, who has bravely fought for years by leading the Stop Spray New Brunswick movement, and Dr. Juan Camilo Serpa for his dedication on the issue and his encouragement. I also want to thank Jennifer, Jackie, Javier, Beatrice, all the work that they put into getting this critical information to the public and bringing everyone together to make this day of action happen. I also want to thank my colleagues from across party lines to raise this as a nonpartisan issue. I will now be pleased to introduce to you Ms. Jennifer Baichwal, filmmaker and activist, who will share a bit of the journey that we've kind of all been on for such a long time. So this is such an important day, and again, I'm just so grateful to have these incredible people standing behind me today. So thank you very much. Merci and Williwen.
Thank you, Jenica, and also I echo the thanks to all of our incredible partners and the people who have been on this journey with us from the beginning, and the fact that this really is a cross-party issue. This is not something that is a political This isn't political. This is way more important than that. So I'm a filmmaker. I made a film called Into the Weeds, Dwayne Lee Johnson versus Monsanto Company. I've been doing this, we're in our 5th year. I've learned more about this chemical glyphosate than I ever wanted to know, and I can't now unknow what I know about this chemical. The ubiquity of use is staggering. I mean, this is Canada's most widely used pesticide. It's the world's most widely used herbicide. It's used in agriculture as a herbicide and also as a desiccant, killing crops before harvest, which is very controversial. It's used in forestry with aerial spraying to kill unwanted target trees and vegetation, really transforming and damaging the whole ecosystem of these forests. It's used on rights-of-way, railways, hydro lines, commercial and residential grounds, golf courses, schools, other landscapes. It's used everywhere. And there is an alarming and growing body of independent scientific research proving glyphosate's harm to human health and to biodiversity. All Canadians are at risk. It's everywhere. It's in our food. It's in our bodies. Some of the latest research that we are following, which we'll talk about also later, it's causing significant problems to the microbiome, not just in humans, but in animals, in insects, in the soil. It leads to kidney and liver diseases. It is an endocrine disruptor. It is a testosterone mimicking chemical. And it has all of the mechanisms that lead to cancer. And that is why the International Association for Research on Cancer, part of the World Health Organization, in 2015 called it a probable human carcinogen, which set off a firestorm in the industry to try to prove them wrong, and they have not been able to do so. I'm an ordinary Canadian citizen, and I'm appalled, enraged, frightened, along with 18,000 plus other Canadians, that our government and our regulatory agencies aren't as scared as I am. And you can see we have a lot of supporters here. Our organizations, our partner organizations include the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, Eco-Justice, Environmental Defence, Friends of the Earth Canada, Safe Food Matters, David Suzuki Foundation. We have repeatedly asked the Pest Management Regulatory Agency to review and act on current science rather than allowing this chemical to be approved. And it is currently approved right now until 2023. The traditional ecological knowledge elders of the Robinson-Huron Treaty area have also had their requests to ban glyphosate ignored, and I would like to show a clip from the film.
We've been spraying for 50 years, my God. This is where I am, right here. Okay, that's where I live. Everything north of here, all of this here is sprayed. One time or another. Holy Toledo. The whole chain is affected. Not just one little thing. Look at the blueberries there. Beautiful berries. Well, they started off with pack cans back in the 70s. Guys walking around with pack cans. They had it sprayed by hand. Perfect. They're nice. The young kids did that for the summer, paid by the government. Then that graduated to a machine driving that sprayer, skidder, big tank steering with a pump. There's some nice ones right here. Then that got to be too expensive, and along comes the helicopters. Spraying the whole forest where the plantations are, where the poplars are, soft maple, birch, anything with a leaf. took the forest out of the bush. Now you put in a garden. Your garden is jack pine and spruce. You don't hear no birds singing? You don't see no eagles, no crows, seagulls flying around? Any insect, nothing. It's sterile.
Elder Raymond Owl is the founder of the Traditional Ecological Knowledge Elders Group, and he has been fighting for over 10 years to stop the aerial spraying of glyphosate on tree plantations within the Robinson Huron Treaty Territory. It feels like we can't trust the PMRA to assess the safety of glyphosate. They're too invested in using manufacturer science, which is an obvious conflict of interest, and protecting past decisions. It's time that our political leaders put the health and safety of Canadians and Canada ahead of pesticide industry lobbying and profit. Last fall, I called on my fellow citizens to sign our petition and get involved, and I'm so grateful that it is being tabled today in Parliament by MP Atwin. Today, I will be filing an official request to the Auditor General calling on 4 federal ministers to account for the continued use of glyphosate in Canadian agriculture, public and private lands, and forests. This siloed thinking of what ministry has what file has to stop, and we have to get these ministries working together on the glyphosate issue: agriculture, health, environment and climate change, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. I would like to get answers on what is being done to tackle the ever-increasing use and impact of glyphosate, and how Canada plans to meet its international commitments on pesticide reduction. The international community, including Canada, committed to the UN Global Biodiversity Framework. Target 7 is to reduce pesticides in half by 2030. Other countries have plans in place. What are ours? We could meet that commitment to biodiversity by banning glyphosate tomorrow. I'd like to end with a word from one of our first petition signatories, and you may recognize this person.
Hello, my name is Margaret Atwood. I'm a writer, and I've been writing about the environment for a long time. Your health is in danger right now. What from? Glyphosate is the world's most widely used weed-killing herbicide. It is everywhere, including in our bodies and in our children's bodies. It is affecting your liver, your kidneys, your intestinal tract, your fertility, and your chances of getting cancer. Fun for all. And it is damaging the lives of countless other animals and plants around the world. What can be done? How can we ban glyphosate, which we urgently must do, without endangering the food supply and the livelihoods of the farmers who produce that food? This is not an insoluble problem. We are a very creative species. Regenerative farming is already making a positive impact. If governments are to keep their promises to preserve biodiversity, and if they wish to prevent chemically induced illnesses and ballooning healthcare costs, they must move to ban glyphosate. They should encourage the invention of alternatives and provide incentives for organic farming. Despite big chemical lobbying and the pressures brought to bear on institutions and regulatory agencies, I know you can do it. I also know you must do it. And deep in your hearts, you know it too.
Thank you for listening today. You've been listening to Depictions Media Radio, and I've been your host, Michael Clogs. And we need to really think about what it is our government and elected officials are doing, and hold them to the highest position of transparency possible. So, thank you again for listening, and click on that subscribe button. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.